And you try to do this where nobody else sees you, so that they never see you without makeup. And the skull cap I made from a pair of white pantyhose, cut the legs off, and tied the legs together into a knot on top so that it will be tied around the hair. And once you get it on, you take some clown white, which is grease paint, and rub it in your hand, in between your hands, till it is very warm. As you rub it together, it gets warm. It will come out of your clothes, so if you get some on your clothes, and then you just proceed to put it all over your face. It's important to get every section of your face covered with clown white. There's 3 different clown makeups. There's a white face and a goose, which shows mostly flesh colors, and then white around the mouth and nose is painted, and white usually around the eyes. But I'm a white face clown, and it's very important that if you have skin showing, not to have any skin showing. So even up in your nose, because little ones are looking upward, and nothing would be worse than a nose, big old nose and your chin, and not have those covered, because that's where they see first. Then after you get all the white on, if you pat your face all over, that will even the streaks out from where you put the white face on. Grease paint patted on with your hand. Then it's important to pat until there's no streaks. And you take Johnson's baby powder, just regular baby powder, and put it in a powder sack, and then you powder your whole face, covering abundantly. Make sure you get a lot of powder on it, because you can brush the excess off, and this is the main thing that sets the grease paint where it's in place. Once you get it powdered real well, then you take your brush and lightly brush off the areas where you're going to paint features. And then with a eyebrow pencil, just a regular eyebrow pencil like you'd buy in a cosmetic department. Once you decide what your face is going to be, at first, when you're first doing it, I always had to keep a picture of Rainbow's face so that I made it every time, because every clown has their own face that goes with their name. Costumes can change for a clown, and they can keep the same name and the same face, but once you change the face, then the name has to change. And but once you get in and out of makeup enough that you just automatically, the clown face becomes just a part of you, and you know it as well as you know your own face. And so you just outline the features. Okay. And after they're outlined, then we'll be able to color them in from one to the other and the different colors. Very wise. The clown that taught me how to put on makeup told me that if you make a mistake, don't try to keep going back correcting it, because your mistake will just continually get worse, and I have found he's correct. Since I use hearts on each side of my cheeks, I have found that a little a heart made out of poster board, cut, works good so that it works like a pattern each time, and it's easy to just draw around the pattern and get it. Working with grease paint, the warmer it is, then the easier it goes on. And I have a brush for each color that I work with. Rainbows colors are red, white, and blue with black outlines. And so I use Stein's makeup most of the time, and you can find it in any theatrical makeup shop. And your brush is just a good quality brush that you use strictly for clowning, putting your makeup on. The first few times till you find out if clowning is what the Lord's calling you to, you could use less expensive brushes to just kind of see. Whenever I'm teaching classes, I usually have just some makeup brushes like you would buy in a little kit at a variety store for the girls when they first are trying makeup and see. I've discovered that if you think the Lord's calling you to clowning, if you'll get into makeup, the first few minutes after you get your face on, you'll probably have a pretty good idea if it's your cup of tea, because when you get into makeup, you just kind of become a clown, and some people are actually afraid of themselves when they get into it. They think they just look horrible, and other of us, when we get into makeup, we just think the clown's the prettiest thing they ever saw, and it just kind of approves, it kind of encourages that that's something you could be doing. I started clowning almost 9.5 years ago, about 1.5 years after I got saved, and discovered, really did not know how to do makeup the first time I clowned. It was for a luncheon, and the job was to just go out and hand them a brochure and welcome them. And I got clear on the other side of about 125 women at a country club where they were all dressed up, and my nose fell off. And that was, at first it was kind of embarrassing until I realized that that's exactly what a clown ought to do, is make people laugh. And then I got real excited. I don't know how the Lord could have done it where it would have been any funnier. I've never had a nose fall off since. And so it was just right for the occasion. So then I went home, and then the next time I attempted clowning, it was at a hospital. And there's some rules in clowning, being a gospel clown. One of them is that you go in as a clown and come out as a clown. You don't go in as a person and come out as a clown, or vice versa. So I went in as a person and went to a dressing room and started getting dressed. When I finished my makeup and I came out, there were several mothers in the waiting room, and they asked me to go to their child's room. And so with that, I made the hospital floor as clown. At that time, I called myself happy because, like I say, it was very amateurish makeup and not a very good job. But the Lord is faithful, that when we're faithfully trying to do what He's calling us to do, He empowers anyway, even if we're not. But as soon as we realize that we need help, then we ought to be prepared. And it was that day in the hospital that I discovered that God could really use clowning in a ministry. And it was also that day a little 9-year-old boy, when Happy went into the room and asked to give him some candy, he said, "So what else do you do?" And Happy says, "That's it. That's all I know to do." And he had a kind of an irritated look, like clowns ought to be able to do more than that. And he was right. A clown should be able to do more than that. So I set myself to becoming more prepared. And before I got into makeup again, I knew how to tie a few animal balloons and pull a few pieces of candy out of ears. And it doesn't take a lot of knowledge at first, and there are a multitude of books that will help you. There's some on clowning and simple magic and an illusion, and then there's some that are for gospel clowns, and they're written with clowning for Jesus in mind, with skits and everything included. Yeah, painted features on the face. Then it's time to outline it, and this is really the thing that highlights and makes the face really look professional, is once you highlight it in black grease paint. It too needs to be warmed up. In really cold weather, I find it works real good to actually put the paint in front of a blower or electric heater and let it warm up a little bit. It makes it easier to work with. And with a very small brush, you just proceed to outline everything you painted. And you try not to get black paint on white, because now I'll have to dress that up. All the features outlined in black, and before you powder again, I thought I would show you how to correct this mistake I made. You remember how the dark just got on there? The secret of doing makeup is don't make these mistakes. But if you do, just take your clown white and rub it till it's warm and just barely kind of pat over it, and that'll lighten it up. And then once you put your hair on, rainbow, my hair is all different colors, so once it gets on, well, you won't see that at all. It'll just be disguised very well. Then, once all the makeup is done, you take your powder cloth again. I use just a white cotton powder sock, and with the baby powder in the bag. And the important thing here is you've got fresh grease paint on, so that if you press too hard, you'll carry the grease paint from one place to the other side of your face, and then you'll get to start all over. So what I usually do is kind of dust over my whole face like that to kind of take some of the exact off, and then very lightly with a lot of powder on, kind of like you do biscuits, very lightly put a lot of powder. You know how you powder your hands so the dough doesn't stick? Well, same principle here. And baby powder in the eye is very uncomfortable. So if you are going to have grease paint around your eye, you want to be very careful. And it is difficult to water it out, to rinse it out once you're in makeup. Try to cover every place. When you put grease paint on, it's very, very sticky, and while you're patting your face, it's sticking, and that's how you get it even. And so whenever you're going back, you can kind of tell where it needs a little more powder, because your skin will absorb the baby powder. And right here, it's kind of sticky, so I'm going to put a little more powder there, because if you fail to get enough powder on it, then it has a tendency to come off whenever you're performing. And the more powder you get on, then you can concentrate on the features a little better once it's done. A lot of people have, and different makeups are different ways. There's probably 4 or 5 different grease paint companies that make theatrical grease paint, and sometimes it makes your face itch. Mine is about to scratch off right this moment. So the sooner you get your makeup on and dust it off, and be sure to dust this lightly, the excess off, as soon as you get it dusted so that all the powder doesn't cake on your makeup or on your eyes, you take a bottle of water. Let me reach my water real quick. Fun of getting dressed as a clown is this part right here, and if your face is itching from the makeup, this will solve the problem. You just get you a squirt bottle and squirt all over your face. Now, if you're teaching someone else how to do it, this is the funnest part because you get to squirt them. And they never expect it to be cold water, and so it almost takes their breath away, and it is fun to do it that way. And lightly pat, and mostly just let it dry in place. Dried from spraying it with the water. I have rainbow-colored eyelashes, and a number of clowns have the long eyelashes, and they come in 2 or 3 different lengths and a multitude of colors. Mine happen to be all different colors, but they do come in just red, like, and blue and green. So if you wanted to just add eyelashes, you could. But your makeup, your eyelid does, of course, need to be very dry before you attempt this. And just a little glue on the back side of it, and then place it right on top of your eyelid, and it just works beautifully. I allow a good 2 hours to get dressed into a clown costume. And most of the time that is sufficient enough time to finish getting dressed. While I'm doing this, I get my wig out so I can put it on, and lashes drying. And the other one, I find that if I let the glue set on the eyelash just a little bit till it gets tacky, it goes on easier. And what I'm doing now is I have a knitted chain of rainbow colors, and I'm going to plant that between my skull cap and the wig in a few minutes whenever I put my hair on. And then whenever I'm around someone, a child or someone else, I can play like I'm hard of hearing, and whenever they just, I encourage them to yell louder or talk up a little louder so I can hear them. And at the point that I feel like we've done that a couple of times and they've raised their voice to go along with it, all of a sudden I realize I can hear something, and maybe something's in my ear. And sure enough, I pull out the long streamer, and then I can hear beautifully. I mean, you know, if your head's cleared out, you can hear. And so that usually brings a good laugh, and really is a lot of fun. When I first started doing that, I kind of squealed and kind of like ooh and awed, and got pretty excited, and sometimes I get pretty loud. When you're working with children, you have to be careful of loud noises if they're very small, because that can startle them. And but when you're pulling this out between your hair, since everything is so literal to them, I discovered that by taping it, that really could be very scary to a child and think that I'm really the clown's really being hurt. So I changed it from squealing and an impression that it might be hurting to a giggling like it tickles as it comes out, and I find that scares children a lot, small children a lot less, and they have a tendency to laugh more. The skull cap, the wig just goes on, and the object is to try to cover the edges. So I use a little bit of the hair to tuck underneath the skull cap, and when you're moving around, and it does. Turned out as you get hair on, you begin to be a different person, because now I'm rainbow. Hi, y'all! Sometimes my southern accent helps to add humor. I didn't really plan that, but it just kind of happened. be missing. I tell all of my classes whenever I'm teaching a class on clowning that anyone can dress up like a clown and look funny and act funny and do some simple magic and some fun things. But if you're going to be a gospel clown, the thing that you really must have is Jesus Christ in your heart so that you can share Jesus. You cannot give away what you do not have. So I encourage you that if you're going to try gospel clowning, pray about it first and know that God's calling you, because it really is a ministry to people. And the Lord uses it when we're in the right direction and following Him. Now I'm going to put on the costume and Rainbow will be all made up. So see you in a minute. Right here. So that you don't get in the position that Happy got into in the hospital room and at least know how to do one balloon sculpture. I'm going to show you the simplest one and the easiest one. And from the dog balloon sculpture, you can just about make almost any other animal, rabbit, just cats, all of those animals, just by the difference of the space. So if you take a balloon and leave, this is a little too much. I only leave about half that. I'm going to make this work. But leave a little bit of space. Don't blow it up all the way. And then with your pointer finger and your thumb, squeeze tightly and twist with your right hand. And then if you take your ring finger and your pinky finger and twist there, you will have two twists like this. Then that makes the head and one of the ears. Then take this one and squeeze it. Now what you've got is two twists here. If you press those together and hold them, then kind of pull this, you can twist it 2 or 3 times, and that will make a head and an ear. The neck is the same way, and the neck is the next thing that comes on the dog. So you just squeeze it like you did before. Come down here for a leg, and then bring it up here. Squeeze there and twist. That makes your 2 legs, and then you squeeze these 2 knots together and twist there 3 or 4 times. Then the body, you make it a little longer, and you try to proportion, and the best way to tell you to do this is just keep practicing, because as you do it a few times, the proportions will get better and better. And then a back leg, and you hold them together and twist 3 or 4 times again. And then, since this one was a little long, we'll put it like that. Now, if you were doing this for a child and it was a little long, a good way to do that is to squeeze right here and tell the child to blow here. But then you leave, you see I don't normally do that because I haven't practiced that, but then you put the air back down here and a little bit of air at the top. The secret is to divide the air, because the bubble here is what keeps these back legs in place. Then if you take a Sharpie pen and draw 2 eyes, features is not compulsory when you're making balloon sculptures, but you'll find that the children really enjoy them more if you do. I always, on a dog, I always tell the children that, you know, people say that dogs are our best friends, but I have discovered that Jesus is my best friend. And He's your best friend. And the reason I know that is because it says so in the Bible. And it says it in John 15, verse 14. And then when you give that to them, encourage them to go home and look it up and see just what the Bible says about Jesus being their best friend. And that's your puppy dog. And for clowning that I think are important and for you to ponder on. When I first started clowning, there was a few rules that I think will be unnecessary, but I feel like I should share since I don't know who will be hearing this tape. One is that you always make sure your costume is clean, that you, you know, wear aftershave or cologne, if whichever is the case, You never, if you smoke, you never smoke when you're in costume. And, of course, there's no drinking. I mean, if anyone drinks. Any food or anything, I usually don't eat when I'm in costume because fantasies don't need food. But if you do it carefully and not drink hot coffee or hot tea or something like that, your makeup usually will survive nicely. My makeup usually lasted all day long. The longest I suppose I've been in makeup was from 4:30 in the morning till 7:30 that night, and it looked just as fresh at 7 o'clock as it did at 5:30 or 6 whenever it got, when we left the house. There are a few things that gospel clowns should remember, and one of them is that a clown never prays, leads in prayer in a small children group or in the elderly that may be confused, because that would make them think that clowning, that God is a fantasy, and we would never want anyone to think that. So if the occasion comes in the altitude, if you're dealing with very elderly that may be confused or children, you never want to present the plan of salvation, because that would be confusing to them too. Or in children's cases, they might make a profession of faith and ask, just because the clown asked them to accept the Lord, and not really understanding the commitment that they're making. So always have someone around that, or lead them to someone that's not in makeup that can help them as they make such an important decision. Whenever you are clowning, remember that if they're small children, the first thing you want to do is get at eye level so you can talk directly to them. And if a child is afraid of you, don't go over and try to calm them. Get away from that child and try to keep the parents from bringing the child to you. Just move out of the way and go on and interact with the other children, and in time that child will see that you're perfectly safe, and the love of Christ will shine through, and the next thing you know, you'll be feeling a little tug on your costume, and it'll be that little one that was so afraid. So just give them time, and I discovered that most of us have our own space, which is about 18 inches, and wait for permission. Watch people's body language and their response to you before you go into their space, so that you don't threaten them, and so that clowning will be an enjoyable experience for them and for you. The rest of the time, undergird it in prayer and study what you're going to do, have some idea of what you're going to do, and then relax, trust God to do what He does best, and have a great time.
Dee Dee is sitting right here. Give us a big smile, Dee Dee. Oh, gorgeous.
I'm not growing yet.
Getting a lesson on making animals out of balloons.
No, I'm going to make a swan. See, to make a swan, you squeeze here, this is going to be the head. And this is going to be the breastbone right there. So when you get that together, then you just squeeze this right together, just like this. And then put this, because it's got to have wings, right? And uh-oh, her head's in the wrong place. It's got to have a breastbone right here. Right in here. Well, I think we've got a swan. Maybe? Maybe? We do.
How neat.
There's a swan.
Oh, it is.
And you know, y'all have all heard the story about the ugly duckling. Well, you know, the little old duck was so ugly that everybody teased her and how ugly she was. But one day she grew up to be a beautiful, beautiful swan. You know, that's the way we are. We're just kind of ugly ducklings till we meet Jesus, and He makes us beautiful.
Now that green would just match my fifth wheel.
I think you just lost the swan to a fifth wheel.
Give it to her.
Oh.
That is really sweet.
That is pretty. That
What
is
did I
nice.
say? In 2 Corinthians